we need to talk. That was a text from my ex, and as soon as I read it, I panicked. My heart almost jumped out of my chest, my stomach was in knots, and all I could think was, what the heck did he want to talk about? I hadn't heard from him in years, but there it was, his name. Do not answer. I had to change his name on my phone to resist temptation, but I just couldn't help myself. So I responded, sure, what's up? And then I was left on red. Hours went by with no response, so I started scrolling through our old text thread, dissecting every word that used to trigger me. And there I was, experiencing that pain all over again. Yep, I kept those messages because I was absolutely toxic. Well, that's what I told myself. I spent hours checking the timestamps between our last conversation and this one, looking for patterns because as a relationship therapist, that's what I do. I'm always analyzing patterns in connection. And then those dancing three dots appeared. You know, those three dots that show up when someone's in the process of typing a message. Those three dots that test your patience and drive you crazy because you can't wait to see what they have to say. Well, as I watched those three dots, all of a sudden, they disappeared. OMG. At this point, you're probably thinking, why are you so obsessed with that text? Listen, I was thinking the same thing. Seriously, why was I so bothered? How could I let those stupid dots affect me like this? 80% of Americans check their phones within the first 10 minutes of waking up, and I was guilty of this. It was so bad that I kept my phone under my pillow so I could hear it beep in my sleep. And I was obsessed for days waiting for my ex to reply. I'll admit, his lack of response was more than words and three dots. It reflected my truth, my fear that I would once again be alone. And the worst part, I never told a soul. We silently obsess in the lingering space between our message and their reply. We spend hours, sometimes days, deciphering the meaning of what was or wasn't said. And we silently obsess over the messages we're still waiting on, constantly refreshing our screens to make sure we didn't miss anything. In the waiting room filled with insecurities, we secretly spiral into obsession, all alone. But consider this. When we obsess in silence, we disconnect from what we truly crave, authentic connection. When I say authentic connection, I mean where we feel seen, heard, and accepted for who we are. Believe it or not, we are wired for a relationship, but unfortunately, most of us are caught up in this epidemic of loneliness. In fact, our Surgeon General highlights in a recent report that only 39% of adults in America report feeling connected. That means approximately 60% of us are lacking the connection we need. And I'm not surprised that it's hard to find specific stats to indicate the number of people who obsess over text. My guess is that most people obsess in secret when fear and shame are attached. But here's the truth. This obsession, the one I experienced and what you might be going through right now, it's not crazy. Yes, it seems toxic, but it's simply human. Let's be honest, we all do this sometimes. We slip into obsession over text threads and emails, often misinterpreting intentions. And we seek validation in a text because we need to feel that we belong to something or someone, but we never say this out loud. We might call our obsession a simple curiosity, but it's rooted in anxiety. Maybe you've heard of OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder. Well, when this applies to relationships, I call it getting rocked. It's when you have doubts and obsessions about the compatibility of your relationships. Getting rocked impacts our self-esteem and can manifest in the fixation over messages. And ultimately, we avoid entering or remaining in relationship. And this doesn't just apply to romance. Getting rocked happens in all relationships, including friendships, family, and relationships with our coworkers and bosses. Have you ever sent an email to your boss who's been micromanaging you? You might have read that email several times before you hit send, but once it's sent, you find yourself checking your inbox all day for a response. In the meantime, you're imagining you might be fired, and you've already Googled how to file for unemployment. Listen, I'm not saying if you obsess over messages, you've been rocked. But I am saying that secretly obsessing over messages is an emotionally exhausting experience. We disconnect because we start to see ourselves and our partners as the enemy. When my ex reached out, I remember being disgusted by his audacity to communicate with me. And I should have called my best friend, but I hesitated. I just knew she would judge me, and I assumed she would say something like, "Girl, why are you doing this to yourself again? You should have blocked him." And she would probably be right, as usual, but I didn't. I see this often with clients who appear to have it all together in all areas of their lives except with love. They show up in my office to confess their obsession over text threads, but they fail to do the same with their friends because they're afraid of being judged. Let's be real. Confessing our obsession to loved ones exposes our lack of control to those who we only allow to see us as being strong and composed. Maybe you feel that exposing your truth will cost you your relationships. Maybe you've silenced your truth because you believe you're the only one obsessing. Silent obsession over messages is a universal issue. I bet there's someone in this room right now who can't wait to go check their phone. You probably already pulled it out while no one was looking. You know, access to technology, including AI bots like ChatGPT, makes it so easy to lean into avoidance when we're obsessing. And all this does is keep us isolated. We might lean on AI to help us decode the messages we receive instead of connecting to our friends. And some of us have gone as far as naming our ChatGPT, just humanizing the connection. And our chats have become a place of safety and security during obsession because we know that AI won't criticize or judge our comments and questions. I've come to realize in the secret room of obsession, we become victim to what I call the 3-dot effect. Let me explain. The 3-dot effect is an emotional response to digital communication that we receive, or the lack thereof, that triggers silent obsession. It feels similar to anxiety, and it might trigger the following symptoms: a throbbing heart, racing thoughts, preparing for rejection, and this deep sense of feeling disconnected. It manifests when we overanalyze, aka obsess, over messages. When you see those 3 dots appear on your phone or you get a notification in your email, you assume what the person is going to say, and most likely it's going to be negative. Sound familiar? The average person has approximately 6,000 thoughts a day. And when we are experiencing emotional distress such as loneliness, our thoughts can become overwhelmingly negative. In the midst of those 3 dots, you might find yourself losing the battle to your insecurities. You might question your worth or wonder if you're really wanted. Or maybe you pretend you don't care. But the truth is, we do care. And there's a cost to our silent obsession. Instead of connecting, we engage in self-abandonment and we forget who we are. Our silent obsession also costs us emotional safety, and our fear of rejection keeps us trapped in a state of confusion. By default, we rob our loved ones of the opportunity to support us in some of our most darkest moments, all because we operate in secrecy. And somewhere under the surface, we become the most toxic versions of ourselves. It's unfortunate, but in response to emotional dysregulation, we stop pursuing authentic connection. And it makes sense. Authentic connection requires us to be vulnerable. First of all, let me tell you, that word is so triggering. We hear it all the time, but being vulnerable means to be open to attack or damage. Why would anyone choose to be attacked? And here I am asking you to do this. I know, it sounds crazy. But authentic connection sometimes requires us to take risk. And yes, there is a risk to confessing to your obsession and asking for support. I know it's hard to admit if you're the one obsessing in silence, and it's also a challenge to ask for help. So let me walk you through my 3-dot detox. The 3-dot detox is an exercise you can do to regulate your heart and mind when you find yourself obsessing over messages. This exercise includes 3 questions to ask yourself. But first, let's start by taking a breath. The first question to ask is, what am I really feeling right now? Maybe you notice fear, anger, loneliness, or disrespect. Name it. The second question to ask is, am I assuming the worst at this moment? If the answer is yes, try to reframe that negative thought with something positive. For example, if you assume they must not really like me and that's why they haven't responded, well, you can reframe this too. They have a busy life and I'm sure they'll get back to me when they can. Initially, this might be a challenge, so that leads me to question number 3. Ask yourself, who can I connect to in this moment to help me obsess less? I recommend that you create an obsess less list. I know that's a mouthful, so I'm gonna say that again. Your obsess less list. This is your designated support system. Choose individuals who are honest, patient, and responsive. And when you're ready to walk through this process, I recommend reaching out to these individuals in advance and share what it means to be on this list. You could simply say, hey, I'm learning to lean into connection instead of isolation when I find myself spiraling over my thoughts. Would you mind being part of my obsess less list? This crucial conversation is preventative care, especially if you're overcoming an unexpected life change, such as divorce, job loss, or a recent breakup. Okay, you're probably thinking, did she just ask me to confess to my obsession and ask for support when I need it? You're absolutely right. This is the perfect way to break free from silent obsession and experience empathy when you fear that loneliness is around the corner. Choosing connection during obsession will take some time to get used to. But imagine if we didn't have to hide our fear of rejection and instead replace that obsession with relationship. The next time you find yourself spiraling over a text, remember this. Some secrets are meant to be shared.